The foundations of ancient Greek civilization were laid during the classical period, a transformative era that shaped the future of Western culture. Spanning the century and a half from the conclusion of the Persian Wars to the death of Alexander the Great, this period was marked by extraordinary achievements in art, literature, philosophy, and governance. Democratic Athens emerged as a beacon of innovation, producing timeless masterpieces and introducing political and philosophical debates that remain relevant today. During this golden age, Athens became the epicenter of cultural and intellectual life. Playwrights like Sophocles and Aristophanes revolutionized theatre, while philosophers such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle laid the groundwork for Western thought. Architects and sculptors created enduring works that showcased the harmony and balance of the human form, reflecting their belief in the power of reason and the pursuit of excellence. Yet despite these accomplishments, the seeds of decline were sown even amidst the prosperity. The fierce independence of the Greek city-states, or poleis, fostered a spirit of competition that often erupted into conflict. The Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta was a devastating chapter in this rivalry, leaving both sides weakened and vulnerable to external threats. Meanwhile, the rise of Macedon under King Philip II and his son Alexander the Great shifted the centre of power away from the city-states, heralding the end of an era. While the classical period remains celebrated for its contributions to art, philosophy, and politics, it also set the stage for the challenges that would eventually diminish Greece's prominence on the world stage. With the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BCE, Greece entered the Hellenistic Period, a time of profound transformation. The unity forged under Alexander's conquests fractured as his vast empire was divided among his generals, leading to the emergence of Hellenistic kingdoms. These powerful states, such as the Ptolemaic kingdom in Egypt and the Seleucid Empire in Asia, overshadowed the once dominant Greek city-states, reducing their autonomy and influence. Under these new rulers, Greece's cities, including Athens and Sparta, found themselves subordinate to larger powers. The vibrant political independence that had defined the classical period was replaced by oligarchic regimes, often installed by the Hellenistic kings. These governments concentrated power in the hands of a few wealthy families, limiting civic participation and stifling the democratic ideals that had once flourished in Athens. Local leaders often prioritized loyalty to their rulers over the well-being of their cities, further diminishing the political significance of the poleis. The instability of this era extended beyond political subjugation. The wars between the Hellenistic kingdoms, coupled with external invasions and internal conflicts, devastated many Greek regions. Agricultural lands were destroyed, trade routes disrupted, and populations displaced. Even Athens, long considered a cultural beacon, struggled to maintain its economic and political relevance amidst the chaos. Despite these challenges, the Hellenistic period was not devoid of achievements. It was a time of cultural exchange and expansion, as Greek art, language, and customs spread far beyond the Aegean. Greek colonies sprang up as far afield as India and Egypt, blending with local traditions and creating new, dynamic cultural forms. However, within Greece itself, the vibrancy of the classical period began to wane. The poleis, now under the shadow of greater powers, could no longer serve as the driving force of innovation they once were. By the time the Roman Republic began its expansion into the Greek world, the city-states were already weakened. The once thriving hubs of political and cultural life were reduced to minor players on a larger stage, their destinies increasingly dictated by foreign powers. The arrival of Rome marked another significant shift in the fortunes of ancient Greece. By the 2nd century BCE, the once proud city-states had fallen under Roman domination. The Battle of Corinth in 146 BCE symbolised the end of Greek political independence, as Rome dissolved the Achaean League and incorporated Greece into its growing empire. Under Roman rule, Greek cities retained some autonomy in managing their internal affairs, but their freedom was strictly limited. Local elections continued, and cities like Athens and Sparta still operated their own councils, but ultimate authority rested with Roman governors. These governors oversaw provincial administration, collected taxes, and ensured loyalty to the empire. Economically, Greece experienced a mix of decline and revitalization during the Roman era. Devastation from earlier wars, coupled with the centralization of trade routes around Rome, left many Greek cities struggling to maintain their prosperity. However, Roman patronage provided new opportunities for growth in certain areas. Cities such as Corinth, which had been destroyed during Rome's conquest but later rebuilt, became thriving commercial hubs. Roman investment in infrastructure, including roads and aqueducts, connected Greek cities to the broader Mediterranean economy, offering new avenues for trade and wealth. Culturally, the Romans were deeply influenced by Greek traditions, which they revered as the pinnacle of sophistication. Greek art, philosophy, and literature became integral to Roman education and society. Wealthy Romans funded the construction of theatres, temples, and public spaces in Greek cities, blending Roman architectural styles with traditional Greek elements. Athens, for example, benefited from significant Roman patronage, transforming its landscape with grand monuments like the Odeon of Herodes Atticus. Despite this newfound prosperity, the essence of Greek culture began to change. The theatres, once alive with the revolutionary works of Sophocles and Aristophanes, now staged more conservative productions, often catering to Roman tastes. Gladiatorial games and other Roman entertainments became common in venues that had once been exclusively Greek. Under Roman rule, the cities of Greece became less centres of innovation and more custodians of their past. Athens, in particular, was regarded as a living museum, celebrated for its historical significance rather than its contemporary contributions. This dynamic, while preserving the legacy of ancient Greece, also marked the continuation of its decline as a leader in cultural and intellectual development. As Greece settled into its role as a province of the Roman Empire, its cultural identity underwent a significant transformation. While the Greek language and traditions spread across the Mediterranean world, becoming central to Roman education and elite culture, the vibrancy that once defined Greek creativity began to wane. The culture that had revolutionized philosophy, art, and politics was now largely focused on preserving its past achievements. Greek cities became centers of classical education, where the works of Homer, Plato, and Aristotle were studied and revered. Roman elites sent their children to Athens and other Greek cities to learn from the philosophical schools that had thrived during the classical period. However, this reverence for the past created an intellectual inertia. Scholars and artists imitated the great works of their predecessors rather than seeking to innovate or challenge established ideas. The conservative tastes of Roman Greece were evident in its art and architecture. Public buildings and monuments constructed during this period often mirrored earlier styles, with only minor adaptations to suit Roman preferences. Theatres, such as the one at Philippi, were remodeled to accommodate Roman spectacles like gladiatorial games and animal hunts, but the core of their design remained rooted in Greek tradition. The emphasis on maintaining classical forms extended to literature and philosophy. Writers and thinkers of the era worked within the frameworks established by their forebears, producing works that echoed, rather than expanded upon, the ideas of the classical period. While figures like Plutarch and Galen achieved prominence, their contributions were largely shaped by the influence of earlier Greek masters. This cultural stagnation was further reinforced by the educational system of the time. Greek identity became closely tied to a canon of classical works, which were taught and memorized as the epitome of intellectual achievement. Innovation was often seen as unnecessary or even undesirable, as the goal of education was to preserve the legacy of the past. While the spread of Greek culture across the Roman Empire ensured its survival, it also diluted its distinctiveness. Greek art and thought were no longer the sole domain of the Greek people, but became integrated into a broader Mediterranean identity. This integration, while a testament to the enduring power of Greek culture, marked the end of its role as a dynamic and independent force in shaping the ancient world. By the time the Roman Empire reached its height, Greece had firmly transitioned from a vibrant leader in cultural and intellectual achievements to a subdued province of the empire. The physical landscape of Greece, dotted with impressive monuments and ancient ruins, stood as a reminder of its illustrious past. But its cities no longer drove the currents of innovation or power. The Greek city-states, once fiercely independent, were now locked into a stable but subservient role within the empire. The oligarchic governments, encouraged by both Hellenistic rulers and the Romans, ensured political stability but stifled social mobility and civic engagement. Local aristocrats, more concerned with maintaining their status than fostering progress, dominated public life. Figures such as Herodes Atticus, who built magnificent structures in Athens, exemplified this blend of generosity and conservatism, where monumental projects were undertaken to glorify the past rather than inspire the future. Economically, the Pax Romana brought periods of prosperity to some regions of Greece, but the wealth was unevenly distributed. Cities like Corinth, strategically located on major trade routes, thrived under Roman patronage, while smaller towns and rural areas struggled. The agrarian economy of Greece, already strained by centuries of warfare, could not compete with the large-scale agricultural production of other Roman provinces. The cultural landscape of Greece mirrored its political and economic realities. Theatres hosted performances of classical dramas, but the once pioneering art of playwriting had become static. Sculptors and architects produced works that celebrated established forms, and the educational system prioritised memorisation of the classics over creative thought. Greece had become a repository of tradition rather than a generator of new ideas. In the eyes of the Romans, Greece's role was to preserve and embody its glorious past. Athens was celebrated as the cradle of democracy and philosophy, but it was also seen as a museum, frozen in time. The city of Sparta, famed for its military prowess, was reduced to a relic, its disciplined warriors a memory enshrined in Roman literature and imagination. The decline of ancient Greece was not marked by a single catastrophic event, but by a gradual fading of its influence. The same qualities that had once propelled Greece to greatness, its fierce independence, its devotion to tradition, and its cultural pride, became barriers to adapting to a changing world. By the end of antiquity, Greece remained a land of beauty and history, but its role as a leader in thought and innovation had long since passed into memory. Yet the legacy of ancient Greece endured. Its philosophical debates, artistic achievements, and political ideas continue to inspire new generations, ensuring that while Greece may have declined as a political and cultural force, its contributions to civilization remained timeless.